Pengine mtihani ingine. Mtihani ya maendeleo. I cannot. Maneno ya siasa tutakuja kusema wakati yake. Unajua kuna watu wanatangatanga barabarani wakiongea. Ni kwa sababu hawana kazi. Mimi niko na kazi ya kufanya. So waendelee kuongea, wacha mimi nifanye kazi ile mlinipatia. Pale mbele tutaketi chini, nyinyi mtaona report card ya kila mtu. Ama namna gani? Neguo.
All right, so that is President William Ruto while he met Murang'a leaders, said, he will be judged with his own development record, which he says he has got one of the best development record ever since his tenure as Member of Parliament, to Deputy President, to now President William Ruto. Muito, I'd love to begin with you. The head of state has turned his own crusader, does not wait for his deputy or for his cabinet secretaries or any of his close allies to talk about his own development record, which he says is one of the best, but he does it himself. From where you sit as a political strategist, what does this mean for him, especially in the run-up to 2027 elections?
Very simple. What can you add to a total man? He has the brains of 4 presidents, and when you have that, such level of intelligence, it becomes very hard to even advise you, address you, help you, assist you, because even whatever strategy you come up with, you already know. Remember even the time when he was elected, instituted as the President of the Republic of Kenya. A few months later, he told the ministers, I know more than you know in your own very own ministries. So the other day, he actually has more more than the 4 presidents, whatever, visions, missions, ambitions, intelligence combined. He has those 4 in one. When we get to that point, no one can actually campaign for you because of what we call overconfidence. So the president is so overconfident, and you see, he hasn't seen where condescendence comes in, because when you don't respect, when you don't acknowledge the abilities and potentials of your juniors, then it means the juniors might choose to step aside and let you do the donkey work, which they are the ones who are supposed to be doing. So you'll carry your own burden, and that's what the president has chosen to do, carry his own burden. I don't know how far he's going to take this, because towards the run-up of 2027, is going to be tricky. But I can try and imagine why he's doing this. The president feels insecure with the kind of politics that we have right now, the pace at which the broad-based government is taken by the united opposition, causing them sleepless nights. And so to organize themselves, he feels like it's taking ages. And so he feels, I'd rather get moving and run with it. And so that's what the president is doing right now. He's actually drumming up for himself. And drumming up for yourself is the worst thing you can do, because let people or the people around you, or people you are leading, like maybe the nation itself, let it speak for the record that you have. Otherwise, when you drum up for yourself, and the record they have, even if it's the people of Murang'a, they remind you of how tractors and contractors come to the site, and immediately you leave. The same happens. I mean, they follow you. These are the people you are actually telling that you have done so much. There are people who are actually expecting to benefit from Mau Mau Road. They haven't. Right. It's not complete yet. And many other projects. You have markets which are launched twice. The deputy president launches the same project, that this will start again. We make sure that it starts during his, shady, funny economic empowerment thing, of 1,000 shillings and 62 shillings. That kind of a thing, the people you're talking to, the ones who went to empower with beans and green grams, they're the ones you're now telling them, you're reading to them a track record. And having done empowerment with dealt empowerment, whatever, service to the people of Muranga, where they got some beans and some green grams and some 50 shillings or 500 shillings or 100 shillings. These are the people you come in to explain a track record, because whatever is done by a CS, whatever is done by a deputy president, whatever is done by the president himself or commissioned by the president himself, all that is supposed to resonate with the people you are expected to make sense to, because the service is supposed to be for the people.
Yes.
So why the president is actually drumming up for himself is because he is overconfident.
Overconfident. All right, Wasonga.
Yes.
When the president says, I've got the best development track record, and not just as president, but even when he was member of parliament, seems he's more focused on just the development part of it compared to other, ways that one can measure track record. For instance, is the economy doing better? Are we creating more jobs? But more on the development side of it, in the aspect of, I've done this road, we've done this hospital, we've done this bridge. I mean, shouldn't there be a balance between this part of development side of it, as well as the things people are not able really to see, but they can feel it?
Yeah, they are solely, but most of the time, is that when you find someone trying to explain himself or herself so much, then there's a problem. If you are a good journalist, then you don't need to explain. Your work will speak for itself. Okay? It's only in Kenya whereby someone is being taken to court, okay, to explain which school they attended and how they attended their academic certificates. So I think we are learning from the best president. If it's true that the track record of President William Ruto speaks for itself, like he said, then I don't think it is something that everybody will see. It's something that everybody will feel. You don't do most of the development maybe is talking about are only on paper, okay? But they are not on the ground. People cannot feel it. Today, if you walk across just from what can tell you how bad things are doing, if today you walk around, you'll see that many people are closing down their businesses, including those small businesses. Businesses are struggling. Okay? If you talk to anybody from Mama Mboga to that barber shop to that salon, people are closing down because they cannot sustain these businesses. Now it's only mocking and something that does not appear well with Kenyans when the president will now come and say that he's doing something and whatever is. Okay? So if it's true that there is some development record with the president and his administration, it is us, the citizen, that should feel it. And we will tell him that things are going on well. He doesn't need to explain himself. In fact, it's only President William Ruto who is, every time and again, of all the presidents that have served, it is only President William Ruto that every time and again he will try to explain to Kenyans what he has been doing. Is
it wrong for him to explain what he's been doing? I mean, he's the president. He'll try to make people understand what he's doing.
That's why I say it. If you are a good journalist, then you don't need to explain yourself. We will know. Okay? Whoever is consuming your content will just know that this lady is doing a good job.
Yeah.
If it is true President William Ruto was doing something right, he doesn't even need to explain. We, the Kenyans, will just tell him, President, things are going on well. But when the moment is trying every now and then to explain himself, try to justify whatever he's doing, then that simply means that there is something wrong.
If he doesn't explain, who will?
It doesn't. What I'm saying is this thing. If he's doing something, we will see it. Because, again, doing a development, for instance, today, my brother Muridi will agree with me for the very first time that if today the president is building a road in his village in Odaya, the president does not have to come to Odaya and tell the people of Odaya that, this road is being built. The people themselves will see. Okay, there are tractors on the ground, we are doing something, is happening. So
sure.
Does the president need to come to Odaya and
No, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to.
When the president is building, let's say, a factory somewhere in Migori, he doesn't need to come to Migori. Okay? The people of Migori will just see, our government is doing something. But now, why is he taking more time explaining himself instead of doing? Okay, let it just work. The people will just see the work going on. But this is a situation where every time he calls people to State House, State House has now turned to a small camp. a small baraza, whereby he will come and call a group of people from all across the country and trying to explain what he's doing. This is the president does not need to do this. If the president is the one every now and then trying to do, then what come of the government spokesperson? It is the government spokesperson will now come and update Kenyans on what the government is doing. But again, even if that, we will feel it.
All right.
But we can't feel anything.
Yeah.
So that is why there is some disconnect between whatever the president is saying and whatever the president is doing. And that's why you realize that there is this hunger. I'm not saying this that I'm against what the President William Ruto is doing, but I'm just stating the fact. The disconnect between what he's saying and what he's doing can be felt by the people. That's why I said, if you are a good journalist, you don't need to explain yourself. The people listening to you and consuming your content will actually applaud you and say that whatever you are doing is good. You don't need any platform to explain yourself. All right,
Mureithi, I mean, when it comes to government initiatives or government projects, communication is one of the, it's a key service to the people, that you're able to communicate to them about policies that you're doing, policies that you're about to implement. And so this, you know, for lack of a better word, one would argue is just him communicating to Kenyans about what his government is doing.
You see, the ailment his government is suffering is that when I explained overconfidence, it means he doesn't have confidence in the people who are supposed to do that communication bit. Like, for instance, if it's a ministry that is delivering, if it's the ministry that is dealing with infrastructure, there's a relevant person to do it, to do all the talking. One, the CS does it from a political standpoint, right, but there's a PS who does that for the ministry, you know. There's also for his office itself, the presidency. He has a presidential service delivery unit. That is about whatever the president does. So if there is any communication that should take place, is that group that was being chaired by this guy who is vying in Nakuru, I lost his name. That department, you know, stationed at KICC, is supposed to do the communication bit. Is the one that's supposed to explain why you were doing what we're doing, how far we have gone, and what time we have, the duration that might take to actually do an implementation of whatever project, ABCD, because it's about the presidential delivery. You know, whatever he is trying to do is what is supposed to be done by his juniors, the PSs, and also his presidential department.
So he should keep away from...
No, he should speak for himself, but he should come after the people he has sent to the ground to speak on his behalf. Right. If you have a presidential unit, people are able to organize themselves and see how they can reach the 47 counties, either through media or even, you know, distributing themselves among the counties and do the explanations on various platforms, whether is in vernacular stations and meeting the people one-on-one. These are the kind of things that such a department would do. It's just expanding it and making it useful. But when you don't need it to be useful, then you will not have a personnel that can match up. So what I feel is that this inadequacy is deliberate. And the president might be doing it because he feels there's no one who can campaign for me better than I do for myself. And like you have always judged from what he says, and he has said before, like I tried to allude here, the president should actually desist from drumming up for himself before his servicemen does so. Because once he goes out there and talks about energy, what do you expect Opio and I to say? Once he goes to speak about infrastructure or transport or security, what do you expect Murkomen to say? He has nothing. What do you expect if you're addressing about or you're speaking about the police, and maybe you make a blunder like announcing that I will stop the Gen Z killings, and then I've made sure that all children are taken back to their family, yet you're talking about some dead children. So you see, when you make these kind of statements, some of these statements, let it come from your juniors to absolve you from this kind of you know, blame by Kenyans. And you see, when you do everything, you cannot be everything and everywhere.
All right.
So what we're trying to advise is that if he would cut it off and have his peers say it even before him in such an event, let the PS do the talking, because it's supposed to be strategic. If he sits down to plan with them, then he would be allowing them, wewe utasema hii na hii na hii, alafu nitakuja niweke uzito. That's how it works. But now you see, when you do when you do a statement right from the PS's desk, then you see the PS has nothing to do, because the script you would have presented to the people, you have already done it. So if that's his strategy, then I think he's going to work against him in so many ways.
All right.
Yeah, obviously.
Let's speak about his record within the education sector. I mean, his government has sort of initiated a new education model, especially for universities, where you're having students who are categorized according to bands, depending on your background, before you can now get capitation from government. HELB recently said it's actually very broke. It's not able to fund students to get into schools. You've got capitation problems where secondary schools and even primary schools are struggling with keeping students in class or even in school, because there's just no money that government has released. And yet you have a budget of about more than 700 billion shillings just from the education sector. If you look at just his record within the education sector, do you feel parents are struggling more now to keep students in class?
Yes, they are really struggling, me being a parent. Okay, if you look at what the parents are paying now compared to what they were paying during the President Uhuru's time, there is a very big gap. Okay, and that can tell you that you know, when you mess up with the education system, then I don't know what else remains to be messed up with, so that at least President can realize that he's really messing up everything. Cynthia, the education system in this country is not working the way it should be. If you look at the funding model within the for the university students, it's really hard to understand why did we move from HELP to this. What was wrong with HELP? Because as far as I know, HELP was really beneficial to the majority. To me, from my understanding, is that there was no need for us having this new funding model for the university. What the president could have done, he could have actually increased some more allocations to the HELP, so that the majority can even gain access to that money.
The universities were struggling. They were in huge debts, and they are still in huge debts.
So now the university was struggling by then. They were in huge debts. Are the debt being paid now? Now that the HELP has been tampered with and we have the new funding model? The answer is no. Okay, so it's actually whatever the president was doing with the new model was not actually offering any kind of solution, but we were just trying to sift from one problem to another problem, which to me is not a good thing. If the president could come in and say, what was the reason behind the university debt and the struggling within our universities? That is the thing that he should have addressed. He said, this is why we are struggling. Why are the universities having a lot of debts? Why couldn't he address that? So that by the end of the day, he gets to the root key of the problem that were making those university struggles, instead of introducing a brand new things that actually, in the actual sense, does not work. Talk to any parents out here paying school fees for their university children. I can tell you, during Uhuru's time, okay, the university education was somehow affordable. Okay, today I was talking to a friend of mine. He was saying that during Uhuru's time, okay, the government funding plus the HELP, he was paying around 20K. But today, the same person is paying over 130,000 per month, per semester. Okay, how then that is affordable? Okay, how then do you say that is affordable? Talk of the capitation within the secondary school. CS Mbadi says that they can no longer fund that. But the most things that will shock many Kenyans is that our government is playing with a very vital department as education, but you see the kind of misuse of fund within State House that is doing absolutely nothing. Some first that someone could ask, then why do we have this kind of money? It could have been better if President William Ruto, my main proposal will be, if President William Ruto could today, the amount of money we have in this country, we can have free education, right from primary up to universities.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Why can't they, if the problem was the capitation and the funding model, I would say that why can't they consolidate all these funds from the bursaries? If you go to our villages today, my brother Muridi will tell you that there is bursary right from the MCS to the governor. Okay. Where are these funds going from? Why can't they just take these funds, put them in one account, let education become free once and for all, rather than going through this one, creating more avenue for corruption? Okay, this capitation, what this capitation and the funding model has created is not giving solution to the school-going kids and to their parents, but creating more avenue for corrupt individual to continue looting public funds.
Right.
Let's have free education. If at all President William Ruto is serious about the education sector in this country, or after his one term, I will plead with the coming regime to find a way so that we can have a free education. Okay? You saw the other day, we give a budget of around 700 billions. But our teachers are still struggling. I saw the others one be called somewhere to be given some handouts. Is that the kind of a country we want to see for our country? So I think, to me, the funding model and the capitation within our secondary schools is doing more bad than good to us. If, as today we speak, if you look at what was happening, what the teachers were saying before being bribed or before being given handouts, they were even thinking to close earlier than the date that they were supposed to close. Why? Because there is not enough funds to run the activities of the schools.
And a few weeks ago, we spoke to one of the key education stakeholders within Nyandarua County. And these were exact words. Schools are really struggling, and principals are playing cat and mouse games with suppliers. You've gone to supplier A, they gave you bins, supplied bins to the school. You didn't pay them. You go to a different supplier, they supply bins, you don't pay them. And so at the end of the day, you're finding principals in situations where within a village, they contracted hundreds of suppliers. This money has not been given to suppliers. Suppliers are refusing to supply, products or services to schools. And with that, I'd also link it to the fact that for the first time within this administration, since the Uhuru administration, you're having a funding shortfall of about 7,000 shillings per learner. Essentially, government is supposed to pay 22,000, but it's paying 15,000, the lowest since the Uhuru administration. What does that speak about President Ruto's record in education sector?
First of all, I think I have to mention that something they've done to the advantage is step up corruption. Stepping up corruption as in everything that has gone down, even in the education system, right from the time when free primary model of education was established by Mwai Kibaki. It was supposed to be totally free, and free as in every resources are actually provided to the school, including learning material. But today you will realize that even students from public schools are actually purchasing textbooks. So it's nothing made simpler for the parents. We are purchasing stationery. We're purchasing all textbooks and exercise books. So how free is free as per the definition of our president, who is supposed to deliver this free primary education, enhance the free primary education motive that was actually established a long time ago. The president should be willing to ensure that free primary education succeeds. What beleaguered free primary education during the last regime is that they would get, yes, the 22,000 shillings for capitation, but it would be delayed. That what money that you're supposed to receive in the past fiscal year, some of it is being transmitted in the next fiscal year, together with what is allocated for that fiscal year, specific fiscal year. So when it gets to that point, now with this government, the KK government, the UDA government, is that even the 22,000 shillings is not getting to them in full. Actually, they have with impunity brought it down to 16,000 shillings, because you cannot explain this vis-a-vis the extravagance in the government and also in the office of the president itself. Yet you see the allocation of the office of the president is 5 billion shillings, and the amount of money that he is actually spending on these frivolous campaigns that he's doing at State House are actually costing more, because if you could quantify, you'll see that they're spending around 50 million shillings. That's approximately 50 million shillings per every meeting to speak to 6,000 people, 6,000 voters. Now, what I'm trying to say is that is extravagance of the highest level. The other day you saw how the entourage in his travels is getting expensive, a lot more expensive. You saw the empowerment program, which is a flop, and extorting Kenya's finances, because the expenditure of such finances, you would hear that a member of parliament who is supposed to be paid a certain amount of a certain amount of allowance when he is out of parliament is not what they're getting. They're getting 100 times what they are supposed to get. You know, if you're supposed to be paid 10,000 shillings and you end up going home with 100,000 shillings simply because you went to chant 2 term, it's so sad. And that's what I was telling you. What the president is doing to himself may make the one-term thing so real. What I'm trying to say with education now, education, setting off a new curriculum means you have to set aside funds to establish it. Like initially, when the CBC was to be established, there was a budget of 371 billion shillings that was to be set aside during the Magoha time. And that was to ensure that CBC becomes a success. To date, as we speak, the 23,000 classrooms they were supposed to construct, they've only done 16,000, both regimes. You know, and every year there is money allocated to CBC enhancement. Now, if these funds that are allocated, you are supposed to do like 16,000 laboratories. They've only done slightly above half. You know, they haven't met the threshold. And every year we're having more money allocated to it. The 370 billion, forget about it, because the regime has passed, and there was the excuse of Corona, which was also overfunded by the international community because of the countries that were hard hit by the Corona debacle. So what you're trying to say with education, it has been messed up. When we started the 844 system, because I was in the 844 system, we had no syllabus. We had no syllabus. We found ourselves at Form 1. We were studying Form 5 and Form 6 geography books and history books. I mean, geography books. Yeah. But because they didn't have enough to teach, teaching material for such. So we were using anything that the education minister sector would actually lay their hands on to present to the people. Now you can imagine the amount of confusion that we suffered is the one the JSS are suffering when they were qualifying to grade 6, when they sat for KPSEA, and now when they're now about to sit for KCPE, they are as confused because even the model itself has not been fully implemented. So they are working within an amorphous curriculum system that has been set by the government. It was supposed to have been complete by now. CBC would be rolling. But look at what's happening to delve into more of corruption schemes that are coming up. Today we are not discussing CBC. We are discussing transition again. CBC is not fully implemented. Yeah. But now we are discussing again CBET, you know, curriculum-based education and training. Yes. Now, they have introduced this thing so that, again, when it comes to the funding, come next budget, we can have some money allocated just the same way. You had to fight against the introduction of SHIF and kicked out Adani. And these funny parliamentarians actually clapped their hands. They celebrated the kicking out of Adani. But they didn't know, or they knew, that the SHIF model is the one that was coming with Adani. And the Adani deal. Why I'm mentioning this, I'm talking about establishing a new thing so that corruption can take place. Why am I saying this? It's so that 104 billion can be allocated. It was allocated in the last budget. Okay? But SHIF is still not working. SHIFSHA is still not working effectively as it should with all money allocated to it. Now come back to education. 370 is gone. You know? CBC has not even is not through with the teaching level, because the teachers themselves are actually undergoing treatment to training to understand CBC. Now the government has introduced CBET. You get the point? Both the teachers and the students are a lot more confused, and the sufferers are actually the parents. Now, what you're trying to say is the same government is seeking for their support come 2027, so that now they can implement the CBC. What I'm trying to say here is that the government is supposed to be very keen on this, you know.
Yes.
Even if you go to the TVET. TVET itself was introduced, which is a very wonderful idea. Imagine at 2022, we had approximately 297,000 enrollment. But by 2025, we had 700,000. But let me tell you, I'm in the construction sector. And I'll tell you that when we are in that field, the students who are graduating with distinction are coming out half-baked. Why? Because the institutions are not fully equipped with relevant training equipment and devices, you know, where they need labs. The labs are not fully equipped.
Yeah.
Thirdly, the trainer themselves have not been in the field practically to do it. So they have it theoretically, they impart the theoretical knowledge. When they come out there to deal with the practice, these guys are actually, they find themselves lost. Now, what you're trying to say is the government should be planning on how it will increase its funding and equipping those laboratories, the field that they have done, and also equip the workshops for all these TVET, whatever, because it's part of the education, hierarchy. We want the government to start seeing things from that aspect, so that when we are producing manpower, human resource, we are actually producing a well-polished human resource. Because you will find somebody has come out with a distinction and a diploma, but goes back to work as a mtu wa mkono because he has to learn a few things practically.
Wasonga,
yes.
To Mwito's point, if you're having one policy that has not gone through, the teething problems have not been solved yet, for instance with the CBC, and then you bring in a new system like the CBE, I mean, the president doesn't make these decisions on his own. He's got a minister or a cabinet secretary for education for a reason. He's got advisors for a reason. Shouldn't they have envisioned that we need one system, let's get through the implementation stage, let it roll, let's see how the feedback is before we can now sort of change and try and reintroduce something different?
That should be the norm. Actually, should be how things should be done, because if you sit as the president, you cannot assume like you know everything. That's why you surround yourself with the team of experts. But as it is now, that could have happened during, let's say, Uhuru's time or Kibaki's time. But the kind of president we have, between the president and the advisors, or between the president and the CSS, who is advising who? Okay?
What are you saying?
Between President William Ruto and the Minister of Education, Migos Ogamba, between Ruto and Migos, who do you think should advise who? In a normal arrangement, it should be the minister should be now advising the president on what should be done. But in this case, the president know more than even the minister does. And he, at one point, he did admit it. So it is like the president is running a one-man show. That's why you realize that we are finding ourselves in this kind of confusion. Okay? The CBC is not a creation of President William Ruto's regime. The CBC was started by the previous regime. During that time, President Uhuru Kenyatta put up a team of experts to help in implementing these things. Okay? How are we going to implement it? How is it going to be done? Today, President William Ruto is a guy that will now sleep, wake up in the morning, and whatever he believes or he thinks is right, he will force it down the throat of whoever is serving under him.
But there was a committee on education reforms that was from the presidential working party.
Do you know President William Ruto is the only president with the highest number of advisors in the history of this country? Okay, I think up to date they are around 22.
Even the continent, I think he has.
Even in the, is it 22 or how many advisors does the president have?
They were around 22, yeah.
Around 22. But now with this kind of advisors, things are not working. What does that tell you? What is happening in this country, Cindy, is that we are in a very sad state. Yeah. The president does not create room or avenue for people to give him policies to try to solve the problem hailing this country. The president is just creating room to accommodate his friends and political buddies, and even create more room for corruption for people to continue looting public funds. If today the CBC is not working, okay? Any experts should ask ourselves, what is wrong with the CBC? Why should the president continue to employ more teachers, okay? Like he has employed around 70,000 teachers, if I'm not wrong. Around 70, more than 30,000 teachers. Why should you employ more teachers when even the system is not working? Okay, why can't you work first on the system? Now we talk of the teachers, so that we even create a good working environment for the same teachers being employed. Why do CBC today is not working? Everything is struggling. Okay, there was a time, I think somewhere before Kenyans make a lot of noise, the CS Treasury says that they don't even have enough funds to run the national exams. Yeah. If I'm not wrong. There was a time they said there is no money to carry out the national exams and maybe there could be some delays before Kenyans come out and start making noise. And they say, now we will do it. Okay? So we are in a system whereby we work with the guesswork. This is a regime that does not even know what they want. Whatever is happening is that those advisors, you know, if you are working with a boss that does not take advice from you, as a junior staff, no, I'm talking about the president, the junior staff can now decide how, let us be seen and not be heard. Even if things are going wrong, we won't correct it. We will just say whatever the boss says, that is what we will follow. Provided our salary in India, we get our pay, we are just okay. Because they know that if you question this, then you won't get the pay. That is exactly what is happening. Even those working under President William Ruto, they might see something not going on right, but they will decide to keep quiet. Okay? Because of the fear of the unknown. Okay? Today, let us not lie to ourselves. The education model and the education system in this country is not working. Okay? And there is no any way to change it. We will not continue changing it. Changing the system every now and again will not help us solve everything. Let President William Ruto sit down with this expert and allow room for advice and take policies from whoever. If I've given you a job, let him give those whoever he has been assigned to do their duty so that we can move in. Okay, let him give room for the Ministry of Education to come up with policy to ensure that the education system is working. He has the PS of education. Okay, let him give room. When during President Uhuru's time, when we had CS Matiang'i, CS for education, Matiang'i could wake up very early in the morning. We could see him supervising how things are working across the country. You will see Matiang'i somewhere in Mombasa, next day somewhere in Kisumu. We never see Uhuru Kenyatta talking about education system. It was entirely, Fred Matiang'i was running the entire education. Okay? When we talk of, when Magoha now took over from Matiang'i, you remember Mwitu, Magoha was running the entire education system. President Uhuru Kenyatta was not there. Okay? President Uhuru Kenyatta was just receiving reports telling the president, this is what we want to do. Okay, carry on. If this is what you believe is right, then carry on. Make it work. Magoha was across this country. Okay? Today, in the deputy president's backyard, if you look at the structure from the deputy president's backyard, you can say maybe we are in maybe, look at that, then you compare, we are in 2025, then someone might say that we are maybe in 1950, if you look at those structures. But now this is where we are. What is of those schools, my friend? You've not seen some of the structures of schools in this country. Children, we are in 2025 with education of allocation of 700 billion, but children still learning under trees. Okay? There are some cases where children go to school under trees. But the president is boasting of employing more teachers. Well, they are going to teach under trees. There is no even good structures. Okay, and we talk of corruption every day. Why? Because the president has decided to be a one-man show. Okay, he's not giving the Ministry of Education or whoever is charged with this thing to run the event. I think the president will allow everybody working under him to do whatever job or responsibility has been assigned to them.
Okay. And you'll add on that as well.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to what he has said, which is he has actually said it so rightly. Let's give credit where it's due. You've employed 76,000 teachers, but no salary. There was a time, there was some squabbles a few months ago over the same thing about the now employment, full employment of the interns. Now, when we look at the infrastructure bit, some schools still, students are still studying in, especially the so-called marginalized regions. They're still studying under trees. But the MP of the area has been allocated 150 million shillings plus hardship allowance and every other money that he's given. So he has no reason to touch the money that they had actually pretended that they are going to use to spend that money on advancing education, especially on construction of classrooms and the like. So when you see students in a madhouse that is not even fully plastered, and that's where kids are with an earth floor. It tells you a lot about the lack of accountability among the parliamentarians and the corruption that is there. I was wondering, the few people who actually hailed the NGCDF while in the hands of the parliamentarians, these are people who don't even pick a pen and a piece of paper to calculate and see that the MP can only account for 40 million shillings for bursary and around another 10 million shillings for classrooms, you know, and then 100 million shillings cannot be explained. And that's why the parliamentarians are actually fighting for this money. If this money is concentrated in the Ministry of Education, maybe some of these things would not happen. But if it's concentrated again to the Ministry of Education, and the minister and the PS and those are working under them continue to become cheerleaders of the president. Cheerleaders as in, you go to a meeting, the president speaks on your behalf, what you're left is just to clap. And that's what they do. And then go home.
Get your allowance.
You get your allowance. That's how our CSs are operating. That's how our PSs are operating. But if the president would cease from doing his juniors' works.
To your point, Muito, is this to mean that cabinet secretaries are the biggest let down for President William Ruto?
No. President William Ruto has not allowed the cabinet secretaries to exercise their prowess in management and leadership, because he does it for them. You know, if he allows them to do it, and they do it within the confines of the ministry, they have experts. These experts will actually introduce the kind of expertise that is needed to run a ministry effectively. But when the president gags the CS, so what is the CS there to tell his expertise to do? You know? Because there is another 22 advisors for the president. Yet the research for advisory is supposed to come from the presidential service delivery unit. They're the ones who are supposed to have a research department established in them, well-funded, to go around everywhere and advise the president. So he has two organs of advisors, but one of them is more defunct, like this other unit is dysfunctional rather. And that's why we're saying, I think the president should actually, what he's been criticizing the united opposition front, campaigning from the top of the roof of their vehicles, he should now go back to State House, lock himself like Mwai Kibaki, and give orders and reorganize his government, so that he can be able at least to make some little change, if not much, because I don't believe he can do much within the 2 years. Because even the woes that he's suffering, the reason why he's running up and down is because of, one, the impeachment of his own deputy. Things that he never foresaw are the masses that actually had fronted these kind of leaders. So when you bedevil them, you are actually bedeviling their supporters. And these are the people you expect to come and vote for you. So what I'm trying to say is that the president should actually sit back and redesign his government, not a reshuffle, I'm talking about redesigning. And redesigning means he should also do a pep talk and advise himself on what to let loose, what to let go, so that he can be able to have the organs that are set to assist his presidency and his presidential delivery, you know, of his, what do you call this, manifesto. Then he can be able now to deliver effectively. But the time that is left, next year, is all full-blown politics in Kenya.
All right.
So it's going to be difficult.
I'd love us to speak on the affordable housing. And there's one of the newspapers, The Standard, I believe, earlier this week had talked of or headlined the housing drive, same as the Daily Nation, which had spoke of the campaign podium. And I'd link it this way. these houses, we've seen how the affordable housing came into play first. Initially, it was proposed to be a housing tax at 3%. After the uproar, it was now to a housing levy at 1.5%. And this was to sort of construct decent houses for persons that are not enjoying decent living. But now we're seeing a change to teachers are promised houses, police officers go to State House are promised houses,
footballers
are promised houses. And so it's all shifting away from what was the purpose of these houses to a campaign promise, or at least a pledge, and others have called it actually a bribe. And so is this a policy shift that we are seeing, or we're just seeing, you know, something different with what the housing was supposed to be?
The impunity in the leadership that we have today has actually ignored the various policies and strategies that had been laid down to have these things implemented, these programs implemented. If it was the affordable housing, remember, it was not to come in with a tax, it was to come in with a levy. And the houses with a very correct budget was explained to by the former, I think he's still the PS for
Charles
Hinga. He explained it when he was working under Uhuru Kenyatta, that the roof of the one above you is the floor of the one above you. Your floor is the roof of the one under you. So what we are constructing is just the walls and the accessories, which would have cost them 720,000 shillings. While we were campaigning for 800,000, between 800,000 and 850,000 shillings, which was to be deducted from the rent that you pay, which was given a normalized rate of around 8,000 shillings. And why were we doing that? We were campaigning that we want to normalize, to lower the rental constraints that people suffer, you know. Those strains that people suffer with paying rents, that is what we were supposed to lower by introducing affordable housing. So if you have a 2-bedroom house at 8,000 shillings, it means the one who is living in a 2-bedroom house at 25,000 shillings will find a reason to find his way into the 25,000 shillings. It was a model that was supposed to work. And it was to work with our consolidated commercial banks and the consolidated bank. That was something we explained very well when we were campaigning, because I was part of the campaign team down there. So what I'm trying to say is that it was a wonderful model, and everybody would have afforded it. That's why the Mamambogas were very happy, the Fundis were very happy, everybody was happy that this is our thing. But let me show you when the trick is. The PPP, before Kenyans discovered that Kenya belongs to the few, just the way we used to have the model and the strategy that was used by the colonialists, British colonialists. They occupied the White Highlands using such tricks. Eventually you realize you guys are actually in a concentration camp, and that's what's going to happen to the poor. But let me tell you, a revolution might come around. And I'm telling you this because the poor are gradually getting disgruntled by what this government is doing. Why? It started with 800,000 shillings. Today is at 3 million shillings, 2-bedroom. 1.6 million shillings, 2-bedroom, 1.6, 1.8. It's around there. That's almost 2 million shillings. So where do you expect this person to get a deposit? Because now the people who are supposed to pay for the houses, it was going to be very easy to pay 8,000 shillings from my pocket and occupy the house as mine and continue paying for it. But now you have introduced a tax, 1.5%, which was actually a tax model for the ODM. It was not for the UDA, Kenya Kwanza. Them, they were campaigning on levy. ODM was campaigning on 1.5% tax. Now they took up the tax. The tax is mandatory. But the problem is that only those who are within the net are the ones who are actually caught in actually the fray. They are actually taxed and they're suffering the pains of being taxed the civil servants,
Okay.
and these people who are in the formal employment.
Yes.
Now they are suffering this without the assurance that what you're paying for,
Yeah.
you are going to become a beneficiary.
A house
Now,
owner.
when we have this kind of confusion,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm calling the octopus tentacle type of leadership. You introduce 844 system, you have 844 system on the table, not yet complete transition. CBC, not complete transition. You have CBET, not yet completed the transition. It means you want to confuse the people, because right now we don't know whether it's 844, CBC, or CBET.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say
Yes.
is that the president should actually kill, and I'm using that word deliberately, he should actually do away with this model of leadership that he is using, the octopus tentacle leadership. We
All
have-
right.
he- they have-
I
they-
think my brother already.
Okay,
Cindy.
Wasonga, as you add on that as well,
Yes.
what must be going through the mind of salaried Kenyans when you see you're being taxed a particular percentage at the end of the month, and then somebody will walk into State House and leave State House with a house? What will be going through their mind?
They're just feeling a lot of pain, but it's only unfortunate that they don't know where to take their hunger. That's why today, if you meet someone walking on the road and talking to himself or to herself, please let that
Let them
person
be.
Or maybe you are boarding your beautiful bus to Rongai and your neighbor is sleeping. Please
Allow them.
let that individual sleep. You don't know what they are going through. One thing I will say is that I will give this to President William Ruto. If you listen to President William Ruto talk, let's say you are coming to Kenya for the very first time, you are visiting Kenya, let's say after 30 years, somewhere in Uganda or Tanzania, and you've not been following what is happening in Kenya. Then you land in this country, the first person you want to listen to is the president, and you listen to our good president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, talks. My friend, you will believe that now, why was I not in this country? Okay? Why would I leave Kenya if this is the kind of president they have? Why? Now the problem now come to implementation. When President William Ruto come up with the affordable housing, to me, truth be told, Muraidhi, let's give it to him. It was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, good idea.
Because if you go to places, if you walk to the informal places, my friend, you will feel like crying. Okay? There was a time, some years back, I went to Mukuru kwa Jenga. You realize the kind of houses there, how dirty the place is. Then you can ask yourself, if I was to become a leader, then this is not an environment a fellow human being should live. If there is something that should be done, let it be done. But you see, whatever the president says and whatever he does are two different things. Completely two different things. President William Ruto, previously in his mind, he decided to improve and give Kenyans a very dignified houses, so that Kenyans, every single person can have somewhere, live in a very more places that is more, have some kind of dignity. But now, the president implementing the affordable housing program, truth be told, Muraidhi, he built so many houses in every part of this country. Go to Nyeri, go to Migori, go to Homabay, go even to here in Kajiado. He has been launching so many affordable houses. Very brilliant idea. But the president now realized that everything he was doing and he was promising Kenyans is now coming down and is failing. He doesn't even have any other thing to promise Kenyans. Now the brilliant idea he has to improve the lives of Kenyans, he's now decided to use it for campaign. Okay? That's why these people who are being promised houses, every person who visited State House and being promised houses, they are not being promised houses, and by the end of the day, even those houses might not be, the promises might not be fulfilled. Because these people are just being hooded and being tried to convince to sort the two-term narrative and support the president and support this administration, possibly for re-election. Okay? That is something that will happen. The only thing I will advise and maybe tell the president that if the president, for the remaining maybe 1.5 years, let's give him 2 years to election, what the president can now do, let him step back, give room for everybody who has given. These people we saw when the CSS were being sworn in, they signed the performance contract. Let him give room for these people to execute whatever was in that performance contract. Let him give duty to perform. Okay, let every ministry, if it is the affordable housing, let him go leave PS Hinga to implement the affordable housing program and achieve the primary goal of the same affordable housing program. Right. If these players and the teachers want to build houses, and for the record, Muraidi, let us not lie to ourselves. Most of these teachers, they teach in the village. My brother is a teacher. This guy come from home and go to school. Why does he even need affordable housing in the first place? Most of these teachers are, yes. Yeah?
They're those who teach in the cities.
But how many of them teach in the cities? Majority of them are in the village. So then, now you want to promise a teacher coming all the way from Karungu to come to Nairobi and promising affordable housing. No. Let the affordable housing meet the targeted individual. If the main purpose of the affordable housing was not to reward the teachers and footballers. No, the affordable housing was targeted for the informal settlement, wasn't it? Yes. So let us focus the people living in Kibera. You go to Madare, you go to Mukuru kwa Ruben, Mukuru kwa Jenga, those informal settlement. We build those houses, then we tell them, leave your houses. Let me give you an example. During the Grand Coalition government, that of President Uhuru, President Moi, and Raila Odinga, Raila started the slum upgrade somewhere in Kibera, if you can remember.
In the Kibaki regime.
Yes, during the Kibaki regime. We do not hear, there were no many noise.
And they actually occupied those houses.
And they occupied those houses. Okay? And they were still living there up to date. Go to Raila Estate in Kibera. You will see it, it's there. Okay? He doesn't even need any explanation. He doesn't even need to go to TV and try to explain himself. No, it is there. The people living in Kibera can see. Now we were living in this informal settlement, the government come and we are living in a good house. Yep. So what the president will do now, let him allow these other junior staff to perform, meet the target. If a policy was set to target a certain thing or to achieve a certain goal, let whoever is implementing achieve that goal. Right. Let him not hijack whichever program or whichever thing he has to meet a certain political goal. Whatever president is doing is politicizing everything. Whatever he's doing is like more of politics. Even if you look at the other day, I was asking, look at even this so-called empowerment program going on across the country. I said it here one day that if this program was really achieving something, can we give it 6 months? Then come back, do an audit, and says we've spent almost 1 billion shillings in the so-called youth empowerment program. How has this money impacted the life of these youths? And how accountable is it? Can we find that money? The answer will be no. You will see the other time, some Farouk Kibet and company going to Kisii only to give those ladies 64 shillings in the name of empowerment. That's a joke of the century. So whatever the president, if you listen to President William Ruto talks, he has the brightest idea. But when it's come to implementation and achieving whatever he's saying, that is where this Kenya Kwanza administration draws the line.
Okay.
Cynthia, if you allow me to come into the affordable housing sector, because it's going to be a very big scam. Kenyans realize this. There is something that had been introduced, the PPP, the public-private partnership, during Kibaki's regime. And when the floating of shares of various companies were done, we could see the public share was at 50%, and it was floated to the public. Today, you cannot tell where PPP comes in. The money that is doing the construction is being tax money. So this private investor, what does he walk in with? An empty briefcase, and walks out with all collections from the rent, because what is happening is that they are coming in with nothing, and eventually the construction is going on by the money that has been injected in these commercial banks. And so out of the interest and whatever principal figures that we have for us as a result of the collections from the taxes is what is actually supposed to be expended in the construction. So where does the PPP come in? And how much percentage is set for the PPP, for the private investor? Now, when we see it from that aspect, it explains to you that there's a lot of corruption that is taking place even right now. Because eventually, this so-called private investor, they're actually coming in with big monies, to invest in these projects. And what is happening? The encouragement of money laundering is actually taking place, because this is the best place you can clean your money, whether it's stolen from the counties or from abroad, and it's brought into this country and purchases a whole block, or in the name of investing or supporting the project. Then eventually you get to realize that much as we are fighting corruption, we are still the vectors and we're the ones who are actually encouraging corruption in this country. So no matter how much good our laws are, if the will is not there to correct and work within the statutes, then I think we are going to have it rough.
All right, gentlemen, we have to wrap it up. We're out of time, but I'd love to give you an opportunity to just have a final on, with just, you've said about 1 year, I'd put it at 2 years to the next general elections, that is of 2027. What should the president do different so that people are able to, you know, critique freely first and foremost about what he has done in office, as well as to just feel that impact of this development record that he speaks about? What do the next 2 years look like in a minute, Muito?
First of all, like I said, the president should call himself to a meeting, very personal, very private, and discuss with himself upon being well advised elsewhere and listening to what we're saying. The things that he's supposed to drop, things he's supposed to do as the president, he's supposed now to get well advised, not to take up the responsibilities of his junior departments and let them do it for him. If he does that, that would actually augur well for him and for the Kenyans, because we would feel the impact even in the growth of the economy. But it has remained as figures only with this kind of a thing, a kind of leadership that we have. So we will have figures spoken about, the GDP, the inflation rate and all these kind of things. But if it does not translate in the voters' wallet or the citizenry wallet, then it means something is not adding up. Secondly, I would also wish to conclude by saying that the IEBC has already given us a budget for the by-elections of a total of 1 billion shillings. To me, this thing is kind of fishy. I can smell a rat, because you see, you're not purchasing ballot boxes, neither are you supposed to engage into now outsourcing these KIMS kit. We have them. You know, it's just updating them and charging them, and that's it. Everything else that is there is only the ballot papers that are supposed to be printed for the exercise, because the personnel is there and the salaries have been channeled there before. All that is needed is just allowance and the few people that will be employed to carry out this exercise. I think let him start by the right footing, the chairman of the IEBC. And I would also advise the people who are being invited to State House to ensure that their voters, their identity card, because this is a voting tool. You would think that that team, that the president is foolish when he's inviting you, but you see rigging takes place with this, and you had the chairman coming in and declaring that he's going to scrap off 2 million voters. How would he do that? Yet he hadn't even sat on the chair. It wasn't even warm. So what you're trying to say is that there is going to be quite some heat. And the people who are being invited to State House, it should not be mandatory that you must produce your ID card, because that becomes a recipe for rigging during that time. And how is it going to be done? Finding your name in Migori while you are supposed to vote in Othaya. All right, those are some damning allegations. And it happens. That is Muto's personal view. That's my view. Of not for EBN TV. That's mine. I can respond to that.
I think I don't have much to say. I've actually exhausted whatever I think I should. But the last one I will say is that for the remaining 2 years, the president has only 2 choices. One, agree to become a one-term president, do nothing, relax, and wait for August 10th, 2027 to be voted out, so that we can vote in a more competent president. 2, if at all he still dream of becoming serving his tenure, the 2-term as per our constitution, then at least let him focus on at least 1 or 2 things and deliver on that. Let him not go for everything and nothing. Because what is happening now is that we have a country whereby we want everything and we want nothing. You know, we are going for everything and we are going for nothing. Let him focus on one thing, that at least by the end of 5 years we can say this is what President William Ruto did. You know, if you talk of, just to give an example, if you talk of President Uhuru Kenyatta, in his last tenure, his last 5 years, we could see President Uhuru Kenyatta can take pride and say, I build roads. The road network in this country during President Uhuru Kenyatta, nobody can question that. Okay? I know Mureithi will want to question because he likes to question everything. But truth be told, President Uhuru Kenyatta did well, absolutely well, as far as our roads are concerned. Don't question. But now what I will say that let President William Ruto, even if you have to question that Mureithi, let's also President William Ruto do one thing successfully so that people can, like Mureithi, can really question it and challenge it. Okay. But now this is a situation whereby of all the everything that President promised, they are all halfway. Okay, we can say there is nothing that you can say that is running out smoothly. Talk of the affordable housing, talk of the Hustler Fund, talk of the e-citizen. He says that he will now, all the government services now will be through e-citizen. Talk of the e-citizen, Hustler Fund, affordable housing, the funding model, capitation, everything. Okay. For the very first time in this country, even our police, there have never been any police recruitment for the last 3 years.
Well, it's about to start.
Yes, it's starting next month. But for the last 3 years, you know, ever since President William Ruto took over office, it is only the first time we are going to have police recruitment. Okay? And we blame the police. And remember, this guy, some of them died, others retired, others get out of services. You know, there is so many vacant to be filled. But this has not been happening. Why? I was one day talking to those in office saying there is no funds even to recruit police officers. Okay, so everything is just not working the way it should be. There is nothing we can say. Okay. Let him now focus on 1 or 2 things, make it perfect. He perfect it so that by the end of the day, when we go to 2027 election, at least he can boast of one thing and say it, even though I promised 100, but I managed to.
All right. We have to wrap it up. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time this morning. Mwito Mugabe, who's a political strategist as well as a friend of the mountain, and Matthew Wasongo, who's a political commentator. Thank you for your time. We've been taking stock of President William Ruto's record in office. He's been one of his own biggest crusaders and defenders of his track record, and says come 2027, that should be the biggest basis of a Kenyan voter on his side, as well as for those that will also be vying for presidency come 2027. We wrap it up at that point this morning. Thank you for watching. I hope you're duly informed. Keep your feedback coming in. We'd love to engage with you throughout the day. This is the Leadership Challenge Show. See you next Friday, same time, same place. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Good morning.